The Russia-Africa summit was staged by the Kremlin to give Russians the illusion of international support for the regime, analysts say, even despite not the highest representative level of the event. The second summit on July 27-28 was attended by 17 African heads of state, whereas in the first in 2019, 43 African leaders participated, and the head of the new development bank created by the BRICS member countries, with the active participation of Russia, made a tough statement on the eve of the summit. She said that the last year the new development bank suspended all its operations in Russia and is not going to change this practice, since the bank operates strictly within the framework of international sanctions.
Any speculations concerning the discussion of new operations of the bank in Russia were unfounded. Dilma Rousseff, head of the new development bank, from a statement on the bank's website.
Another super task of the Kremlin is to buy the loyalty of African states. Russia has forgiven African countries debts worth $23 billion, most of which appeared during Soviet times. Putin called the development of ties with African countries one of the constant priorities of the Russian Federation.
It is very important for us to hold this forum. The comprehensive development of ties with African countries in politics, in the field of security, in the trade, economic and humanitarian spheres is one of the invariable priorities of the Russian foreign policy.
Putin promised the leaders of some African countries to deliver tens of thousands of tons of Russian grain free of charge within a few months. In response, African leaders called on Russia to immediately unblock the grain corridor and ensure the security of supplies of Ukrainian agricultural products.
An agreement must be possible to try to save thousands of people who are dependent on these imports. Africa's economic food security will be most at risk, especially since the continent is already badly affected by food price shocks caused by the interruption of its supplies. Apart from the typical diplomatic platitudes and promises of continued cooperation and development, Putin's rhetoric at the Russia-Africa Forum does not represent a major aberration in the Kremlin's policy towards the African continent. The reputation of Putin and the Russian government has likely suffered due to a number of recent factors: Russian exit from the Black Sea Grain Initiative and strikes on Ukrainian port infrastructure, from the report of the Institute for the Study of War.
Putin's attempt to position Russia as the most attractive ally of African states is called by analysts a deliberate failure. Russia's reputation in Africa has been greatly shaken by the withdrawal from the grain agreement. The Biden administration has criticized Moscow after Putin told leaders and officials in most African countries that his country is working hard to prevent a global food crisis.
And I also add, despite Russia's rhetoric, they actually invest very little in Africa, accounting for a mere 1% of the foreign direct investment that goes to the continent.
With its promises, the Kremlin seeks to recruit as many African countries as possible to its side by any means, analysts say. So far, the results that had been rather negative. A week before the summit in St. Petersburg, the South African authorities applied to the prosecutor's office for a warrant for Putin arrest. This means that in the event of a visit to South Africa, the president of Russia must be arrested there. Reported by Roman Smoler, Natalia Husak, UATV News.